Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live. Been a couple of games here since the last episode, and the Warriors have recorded back-to-back wins for the first time since November. A huge win here, 121-113 over the Memphis Grizzlies at Chase Center. Of course, that backs up the blowout 139-105 victory against the Philadelphia 76ers 48 hours earlier. So good news for the Warriors is that the woeful shooting December seems to have dissipated, and they've come into the new year a different team, and they're actually starting to put the ball through the hoop, which is a major positive. Obviously, they shot the lights out against the 76ers the other night, and then in this game, what did they shoot? 52.4% from the floor and 53.5% from three-point range, playing without Steph Curry. Jonathan Kuminga gets a concerning ankle injury late in the second quarter, where he had a nasty kind of roll there on his ankle. And it sounds like from Steve Kerr's post-game press conference that it's not going to be a day-to-day thing. We could see JK out of action for a little while here, which is got a whole different range of complications. Obviously, first and foremost, it's very disappointing for Jonathan Kuminga because he's currently was in the best stretch of his life as a basketball player and playing so well, and he had 13 first half points here. So first and foremost, that's the most disappointing factor, but it's going to have so many different implications in terms of trades. Obviously, we know Kuminga was a potential trade candidate before the deadline. I think the way he's been playing, he's tried to pull himself away from potential trade speculation and really solidifying himself as a key part of the Warriors core moving forward. But even you look at a guy like Kyle Anderson, who I think most of us saw him getting a bunch of DMPs recently and thought, well, there's a guy making between $8 and $9 million who the Warriors could utilize in a trade. Now, all of a sudden, Kyle Anderson plays over 21 minutes in this game, gets dusted off from the bookshelf into the game, even closes the game, and has a real impact for the Warriors. And Steve talked about him in the post-game press conference and the fact that it's so ideal for the Warriors to have him as their kind of backup plan now, with Kuminga going to be out of the mix, sounds like, for a couple of weeks here. So the implications of this injury are certainly there for all to see, but I think it's important to note this victory and those who stood up. So I'll get to your comments in a second. First of all, I just want to mention Andrew Wiggins. Huge second half. Was really interesting to hear Steve in the post-game presser there state that Wiggs got mad basically because of the play late in the second quarter where Desmond Bane got an and one where he basically pushed Wiggs to the ground. Steve admitted that got Wiggs mad, and he came out, had 18 points in the third quarter, really lifted the Warrior offense in a time, obviously, where they were missing Steph and Kuminga, and the Warriors were able to keep the Grizzlies at bay in the second half there. They got within one early in the fourth. Temper started to flare with Draymond getting a flagrant foul. Dennis got a tee at one point as well, but the Warriors managed to hang on thanks to their incredibly hot shooting. That was the difference in the game. They go 23 of 43 from deep, 53.5%, as I said, and the Grizzlies 9 of 27, 33.3%. That is the difference in the game. Some of your comments here, guys. Daniel says, let's go, big win, FTW clan. Great team win. Everyone stepped up without our main offensive firepower, and we finally got back-to-back W's. Yeah, if you look at the scoring in this game, Wiggins led the way, game high 24 points. Again, 22 of those in the second half. 9 of 17 shooting, 3 of 10. Also had 3 assists, 4 steals. Was a plus 10 in the game as well. But outside of that, we had 6 players in double figures. Lindy Waters III, welcome back. You've been missing for 6 weeks now. I don't remember the last notable performance you had, aside from, was it the fourth game of the season against the Pelicans where he went off in a surprise game? Hello, thank you, you're alive. 16 points, 6 of 7 shooting, 4 of 5 from three-point range, a couple of big ones in the fourth quarter, 3 rebounds, a couple of assists as well. Really strong performance from Lindy Waters. Nice to see that. Buddy Hield, hello, welcome back as well. 4 of 7 from three-point range. Dennis went 3 of 6, had 17 points, 9 assists. This is the benefit of having him when there's no Steph. You've still got a bona fide starting point guard that you can have out there setting the table, making the offense work for you. And again, 17, 9 assists typified that for Dennis Schroeder. Draymond, I thought, was solid. You know, Jaren Jackson Jr. got a hold of him a bit, but I think Draymond did his best to make things as difficult as they could be for Jaren Jackson Jr., who had 23 points but didn't completely annihilate the Warriors in any way. And then you've got Trace Jackson-Davis, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, stuffed the box score there a little bit 5 of 13 from the field. Hello, can we make a layup, please? But otherwise, yeah, a really solid all-around Warrior performance. JSW says, surprised Moody only got 8 minutes considering he's been hooping recently. Yeah, that's surprising. He made probably the toughest shot. Well, it wasn't even the toughest shot of the night because Jake LaRavia made that BS3, double clutch BS3 at the end of the first quarter. But then Moody made his own double clutch three-pointer, which was ridiculous. He went 2 of 3 from beyond the arc, 8 points in just under 9 minutes there. FTW Clan says, I was at the Philly game and got to witness history. Curry going 8 from 8 from 3 and the rest of the team with the most made threes of the season. It was so awesome to be there live. Fantastic. Great for you to be there. Wish I could have been there as well. I was stuck watching the game on my iPad, actually. I was down at my mum's place for a bit of a New Year's get-together, so I did watch the whole game. It's an impressive performance from the Warriors, a much needed one. Great to be able to have an easy, chill game where we could just enjoy it and be able to be afforded the luxury of a blowout win and not having to be stressed or nervous at the end of the game, which I was here a little bit in this 8-point victory over the Grizzlies. But then when you had the Wiggins dunk there in the final 70 seconds, that was really the exclamation mark. And then Waters made that big 3 with 2:08 to go that extended the margin from 5 to 8. That was a huge bucket as well. Thandex says, refs try to give Memphis the win. A lot of stuff going on there early in the fourth quarter. Felt like the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter in game time took about 45 minutes. They were reviewing stuff, Draymond getting a flagrant, Draymond getting a tech. There were, I think, Grizzlies got a couple of techs. Like, there's a lot going on. Look, Warriors got to win. Let's not complain about the refs too much. FTW Clan says, also, I think it's just because Lindy and Buddy and Wiggins were all shooting well. That's in relation to Moody not playing much. Then Nick said, Lindy played well, good team effort. Yes, certainly Lindy Waters' best performance for quite a while. Again, the only one I can really remember was at the fourth game of the season against the Pelicans, where he had like 21 points or whatever. JSW, Moody shooting well too. Ain't complaining because Lindy got the job done. Thandex says, when Kuminga went down, I thought we were done. Yeah, when you lose your second best scorer after playing without your best scorer, I think Steve probably thought at that point, okay, can we get Steph on to play the second half here? Can we just change the injury report and get into to play the second half? But fortunately, Wiggs was able to step up. Waters was able to step up. The Warriors continued to hit their shots, which after how they shot in December, they simply had to turn this around. And I haven't mentioned it on this post-game live or on the podcast previously, but I have wrote about it for BlueManHoop.com. The Warriors entered the new year, right, with all 14 players on the roster having shot worse this season than they did last season. To have all 14 players shooting the ball worse from the field overall, not have one player shooting the ball better in comparison to what they ended last season at is astonishing. And the fact they were actually at 500, like if you went into the season and said after 32 games, we're going to be at 500, but all 14 players on the roster are going to be shooting a worse field goal percentage than what they did last season, you would have taken that, because you would have said, oh, well, if that's the case, we're probably 5, 6, 10 games under 500, and it's a real struggle. But anyway, good to see the Warrior offense back in action a little bit over the last 2 games. JSO says, Kuminga injury looked bad. I hate watching those rolled ankles. I hate any real significant injuries. It sounds like, I don't know, Steve said it was a fairly serious one. It is a rolled ankle. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Hopefully it's only a couple of weeks maybe. Wiggins stepped up, dropping 18 in the third, says FTW Clan. Exactly, he did. GSW says he kept falling awkwardly leading up to that as well. Stuff scaring me whenever he goes down. It's just mostly like, it's just really disappointing because JK is obviously having his best stretch of his career and really he's been the Warriors' best scorer in the last 6 games leading up to this game, averaging over 24 points a game, over 52% from the field. So for it to happen at this point is really disappointing. FTW Clan says, every time Kyle gets on the floor, he plays super well. Thandex says Kyle needs to play more games. I don't know why Kerr wasn't playing him. I suppose I agree, he needed to be playing more, but the only reason I think he wasn't playing was because they were obviously, giving Kuminga huge minutes, like over 30, 35 minutes a game. You've also got Draymond, you've also got Trey. So there's 3 guys there in the front court who can't really shoot the ball that much. And then given Kyle's not necessarily a big man, a center as such. Having another front court player there who's not a great shooter, it does become difficult to play him for considerable minutes. I do think he should have still been getting 12 to 18 minutes a game. So the DNPs have surprised me, but obviously he's going to get his opportunity now without Kuminga. Sandick says 18-16. Hope we pass both LA teams. Yes, obviously back-to-back wins gets us 2 games over 500 again, which is a good result. Kings tomorrow. Hopefully we can get to 19-16. Daniel says, I wonder if it's because of Pods. They are both connective passes, and if Pods isn't going to shoot, I think Kyle is just better, but long-term I get why they want him to get right and grow. Yeah, that's a good point. I think Kuminga is the biggest factor of it because they obviously play the same position and wanting to give nearly 35 minutes a game to Kuminga. That's just someone's gonna have to lose minutes, and that was Kyle. Valet says Lindy referees doing their best to ruin good basketball games. I'm not going to get into the refereeing. I've said that before. Gamer F2P says let's go Dubs. Valet says Desmond Bain bumping Wiggins finally woke his butt up. Yeah, again, fascinating to hear Steve Kerr talk about Wiggins in the post game and stating that play actually got him mad, which you very rarely see Andrew Wiggins mad, but apparently it did. Gamer F2B says Kerr is forced to play lineups we've been clamoring for only because of injuries. I suppose like the GP2 Pods injuries and their absences does mean that the Warriors, haven't had the ability, or Steve Kerr hasn't had the ability to play those super small lineups, which obviously frustrate fans quite a lot. Gamer F2P says, like I said, slow-mo getting DNPs is nasty work. Yeah, he's just a genuinely good NBA player, and he's so connective, and you'd think he's such a Warrior-style player with how he defends, with how he passes the ball, with how he can play make a little bit. Made a 3 early in this game, which was good to see. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens with him, because leading up to this game, if you'd asked me if he was going to be on the team within a month or not, I probably would have said he's off the team, making that $8.7 million or whatever he's making this season, getting DNPs. What's the use of having him on the roster? The other factor is, though, like he is on a 4-year contract, 3-year contract, 3-year 27, and things are going to change throughout that. Like the roster around him is going to change. We'll see what happens with Kuminga in restricted free agency. Like if you decide to trade Kuminga, which you might not decide to trade him, but if it's a sign and trade in the offseason, or you just let him walk in restricted free agency, then all of a sudden, Kyle Anderson's not the answer, but he does become a much more important player, as he will become in this stretch with Kuminga out. GSW says, a few comments here. FTW Clan, can we get someone whose only job is to piss off Wiggins before every game? It's not a bad idea. Not sure how you necessarily do that, though. Valet says, how about the tech that Dennis got getting the and one? GSW says, if anyone else did Draymond's foul on Edie, it ain't a flagrant. Yeah, there's certainly a Draymond tax somewhat. I actually think sometimes it goes both ways with Draymond. Sometimes I think he gets penalized for stuff like you're talking about, like that flagrant foul, where sometimes just because it's Draymond, they call it a flagrant foul rather than a common foul. I also think sometimes he's barking at the refs. The refs do give him a little bit more leeway than what they do other players. So I think it can work both ways sometimes. It's really interesting. Gamer F2P says both texts were ridiculous, really. Valet says Dre's foul on Edie was less severe than the JJR hook / elbow to JK's head. Yeah, that happened in the first half. Any other thoughts here? Let me know from you guys on this game. Again, I don't really want to talk about too much in the way of the officiating and the flagrant foul call and the technical foul calls. I just thought the Warrior offenses had to turn around at some point. Their December period was so bad. They were last in field goal percentage. The team is not that bad offensively. Like Lindy Waters III is actually known as a three-point shooter, so it didn't make any sense that he was like 30% for the season. Buddy Hield, kind of the same thing. Obviously, his percentages on the season aren't that bad because he had such a hot start, but he cooled off a bit. Schroeder, not a 30% guy from the floor. Like he's a talented offensive player. Only goes 6 of 15 in this game, but he's stepping it up. The last 2 games have been his best performances from a scoring output. So good to see the Golden State offense back up and about. Valet says Lindy is low-key a better on-ball defender than Pods. Well, he's certainly got the size, and that's when they picked him up. I thought, okay, this guy can actually do something for you because he does have size to be able to compete on that end of the floor. He's actually not a bad rebounder either. So he can do some things outside of just shooting the ball. But the issue for him is like that's still his bread and butter. Like he's still got to be probably a 40% three-point shooter to be effective as a role player in the NBA. And this season, what is he now in the season? Lindy Waters. Just checking this. Heading into this game, he was 35.9% from the floor and 32.7% from three-point range. So you just can't have those numbers. And his spot in the rotation was really under question, particularly with Moody coming back. I am surprised that Waters plays. This has been a common theme for me. I've been so surprised that Waters has played so much more than Moody over this season when they've both been healthy. And again, he plays nearly 20 minutes more than Moses in this game. But again, you can't complain when Lindy Waters goes 6 of 7, 4 of 5 from 3 and has 16 points. Gamer of to be. Since Buddy is always up and down, we need consistency with Moody, and Lindy Waters makes way better choices than Moody. Perhaps, do you need all three of those guys? That's probably the question you have to ask yourself. Do you need... Now, nights like tonight when Steph's not playing, then, yeah, absolutely, you need all three. But could you just keep Lindy Waters and, could you trade Buddy Hield, who's on that, again, another guy on that mid-tier salary between $8 and $9 million? I don't think you need all three. You've obviously got Moody coming up on that extension. Makes it difficult to trade him on that poison pill contract, but maybe it's a factor in the offseason. You look at that and you think... Particularly if they re-sign Waters. Waters is on an expiring contract, so if they re-sign him to another minimum or something, then that's probably better value than paying Buddy Hield $8 to $9 million, and Moses Moody is going to be on, close to $13 million here. So a bit of money ball there, and I think if you can get Waters back, then maybe one of Moody or Hield become expendable in that scenario. So, yeah, a good win for the Warriors, no doubt. Very disappointing on Kuminga, and we'll wait and see for more on that. But again, sounds like he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Steph will be back tomorrow against the Kings. Just a bit of trade chatter I wanted to talk about from the Athletics report earlier in regard to, firstly, Jimmy Butler and the Warriors having very little interest in exploring a Jimmy Butler trade, which is interesting because you would have thought with the offensive difficulties they've had and their desire for a second star that they might be after Jimmy Butler. But I completely understand why they're not. There's a bunch of factors here that make it incredibly risky. Age, obviously being 35, the injury history, the contract situation. And if you were to trade for him, you really want to be giving him, you're pretty much binding yourself into giving him a $50+ million per year extension in free agency. Otherwise, he's just going to walk. It's a short-term rental. And then what's the point? And then obviously you've got his volatility, which is now he's about, assuming he gets traded here, he's going to be on his 5th team in less than 8 years. And he is someone that, regardless of whether he's under contract or not, he's going to be willing to try and force his way out of situations if he isn't entirely happy and he wants to seek a fresh start. So I can completely understand the Warriors not wanting Jimmy Butler or not, just seeing the situation as far too risky and far too difficult when he's making $48.8 million, having to give up Andrew Wiggins, having to give up a bunch of other role players. So that's that part of it there. And then the other part of it was the Vucevic part of it, which obviously I've been clamoring for weeks, which it sounds like he, according to The Athletic, is the name, the player the Warriors are most aggressively looking at ahead of the February 6th deadline. Of course, makes $20 million. Is going to be a guy that's far more affordable. You're just really going to need matching salaries and maybe a couple of second-round picks. I doubt you'd even need a first-round pick. I think it's a real, I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. I think it's a low-risk move for the Warriors that could revolutionize their offense in terms of getting a stretch bigger guy that can space the floor. I know in that article or in that report from The Athletic, they spoke about having, Draymond trying to make up for the defensive concerns of Vucevic. And obviously in that scenario, you get to keep Wiggins as well. And you hope his perimeter defense can try and hide some of those concerns that Vucevic, has on the back line, I guess, in the front court. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here over the next month. And things are going to be complicated somewhat by the Kuminga situation now with the injury, with Kyle Anderson stepping up. Are you going to be willing to move him now in a Vucevic trade? You've obviously got Looney and Payton, who I think expiring contracts. They're not playing. Obviously GP2 is out injured at the moment. Looney's just not playing. Those two guys making combined $17.1 million. You'd imagine they're two players that could be on borrowed time as Warrior players, at least when it comes to this season. You could try and bring them back in free agency, potentially on veteran minimums, and maybe it's just a short-term parting of ways. But if the Warriors are truly after Nikola Vucevic, those two guys are the clear ones that get pretty close to his salary, and then you'd obviously have to include another one of these rotation pieces, whether it's I know the Athletic, they had Peyton and Wiggins, and then also Peyton and Looney, and then also Lindy Waters, I think, involved in that. I'm not even sure if that was legal, because the trade was legal, but of course the Warriors would have to fill out the rest of their roster with two other guys if it was to be a 3-for-1 trade. So it is really interesting. Thandex says, I don't think Jimmy is worth it. Can't trade JK, and Jimmy is old. Yeah, like you'd probably have to trade Kuminga and Wiggins for Butler. And I just don't think the Warriors want to do that whatsoever. And I don't blame them. I think there's too much risk with Jimmy Butler for that to be worth it. FTW Clan says his fit in the locker room is very questionable too. Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, with his volatility and his desire to, force his way out. Like this was when Pat Riley came out less than 10 days ago and said, we're not trading Jimmy Butler, I knew that that's not the end of the Jimmy Butler saga, because Jimmy can hear that, and Jimmy can make it very, very difficult for Miami, and he can essentially force his way out and request a trade and do everything in his power to make sure he's not on the Miami roster come the February 6th trade deadline. And that's what basically he's done. They've suspended him for 7 games for misconduct and actions that obviously aren't helping the team in any way, shape, or form. So that was always going to be the case. And I'm just worried here, the Warriors signed Jimmy to a 2-year, $100 million extension in the offseason. Then what's stopping him from, doing a similar thing at the trade deadline next year and saying, well, I just don't want to be here anymore. I don't like Draymond. I don't like playing with Steph. I don't like the Warriors system under Steve Kerr. I don't think we're championship contenders, which it is very questionable whether the Warriors would get into contention with Jimmy Butler. And that's even if he does resign. Like there's the risk for any team that picks him up that he just walks to another team as opts out of his player option and walks as an unrestricted free agent to wherever he wants to go. So the risks involved here, I just don't think are worth it from a Warrior perspective when you've got a guy like Andrew Wiggins on if he's playing like this, if he's a guy that can give you anywhere between 15 and 25 points, who can shoot 40% from 3, if he's playing like this, he's your primary perimeter defender, and you got him under contract on a pretty good deal for a couple of more years here at around $25 million, is that not just better value than Jimmy Butler at double the price and having to give up assets and probably having to give up Kuminga in the process? I don't know. It's when Wiggins plays like this, it's easy to say that, but then he has other quieter performances where you think, oh no, we could really do with trading this guy for Jimmy Butler. But again, it's Wiggins and stuff, and I don't think the Warriors necessarily want to do that. All right, I might finish up here because the Warriors have a back-to-back tomorrow against the Kings, and I'll probably do a post-game live after that. So there'll be plenty to talk about. Steph will be back. GP2 will remain out, as will Pods, you'd imagine. Kuminga will most definitely be out with that ankle issue, which is a real concern. It's going to be interesting to see what the Warriors do with their minutes. Kyle Anderson certainly to be the biggest beneficiary from this. Stuff like the Waters and Moody debate, who plays what minutes there. Throw in Buddy Hield, who you'd expect will move back to the bench with Steph coming back tomorrow. Are they going to manage Draymond at all here? Does he need a rest potentially? The Kings, I think, are coming off a couple of wins, aren't they? The Sacramento Kings at the moment. Just checking. Obviously fired Mike Brown last week or the week before, whenever it was. And have Doug Christie now as their interim coach. Just checking their fixture here. No, they've won 3 straight games now. Dallas, Philadelphia, and Memphis. So 3 straight after 6 straight losses. They are 16-19 in the standings. So they're still trying to hang around. Just a few other results today, which are actually good from a Warrior perspective. Phoenix continue to be in a bit of a hole here, going down 126-108 to the Indiana Pacers. KD, 25 points. I don't know. If Phoenix continue to fall, could KD be available? I highly doubt it. It's probably something for the offseason if that was to happen. Minnesota going down to Detroit, 119-105. That's a great result for Golden State. Denver beating San Antonio, both obviously Western Conference rivals. Doesn't really matter. Chicago beat the Knicks. Vucevic, I think he had 22 and 12. Didn't he? Something like that. 22, 12, and 3 assists on 10 of 19 shooting. Just seemed every time I check his box score, I'm like, yep, that's what he puts up, really. Utah smashed Miami, so 136-100. I saw Bryce Sensabaugh went for, what did he go for? Like 34 points? Yep, 34 points in 25 minutes. So looking at the West standings right now and the implications of this win for the Warriors, they are up to 8th in the West, 18 and 16. The Thunder well on top. The Rockets 7 games back, as are the Grizzlies. The Nuggets are 9 games back, with the Lakers both 20 and 4. Lakers are up to 20 and 14. Mavericks 20 and 15. Clippers 19 and 15. They will probably move to 20 and 15. They are currently well ahead. I think they're playing Atlanta at the moment. The Warriors are 18 and 16. The Spurs 18 and 17. Minnesota 17 and 17. Kings 16 and 19. The Suns have dropped to 15 and 18 at the moment. So hopefully the Warriors can. They need to try. They're currently 1.5 games back from the Mavericks at the 6th seed. They need to try and hang on, I think, with that top 6, because ultimately at the end of the day, you don't want to be involved in that playing tournament. And I'm still optimistic that the Warriors can get there. A few other comments from you guys before we finish up here. George says the Warriors need to do all they possibly can to get a stretch 5. That will solve their problems. Yep, good news for you then, because Vucevic does seem to be the one that they may be targeting here. And at a pretty gettable price, you'd imagine. Berserk Monk says, good game for the Warriors. Was crazy how many more threes they had to make at a 50% clip in order to win by like 8. Yes, they made 14 more threes than the Grizzlies and shot in excess of 50% from 3. And the Grizzlies were, 20 or 33% from 3 or whatever. Berserk Monk says Pistons beat the T-Wolves and Edwards dropped 50 plus. I didn't actually see that Ant dropped 50, but good on him. Unfortunate for him and the Timberwolves, they couldn't get the result, and there are a few problems there at the moment. Ghost says, I know they're going to say Lindy moves the ball better, but if you give Moses 27 minutes and don't think he's going to have 2 assists like Lindy, you're only lying to yourself. I like Lindy's game though. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think Moody should be getting a far greater balance of those minutes, but again, you can't complain in a game like this where Waters plays so well. Thandeka says Australia won, thought it would reach day 5. Yes, for you guys either in Australia or India or in any of the Commonwealth countries that know whatever the hell cricket is. Obviously, I know what cricket is, but yes, the Aussies got a great win. My man Bo Webster, who is from a little town, Snug, which is about 25 minutes away from me. He debuted, played his first Test match for Australia, and got the winning runs, played incredibly well, made runs in the first innings, took his first wicket in the second innings. So congratulations to him and the Aussie boys. So good to beat the Indians, who were really getting on our nerves, it must be said, with the way they were acting. But it's a two-way street, you know. Ghost says still need Vooch and a good team win. Yeah, you play like this, the offense is, performs like this over their last 2 games. I think these are out-of-the-box performances. I think a lot of the performances we saw in December were out-of-the-box performances. I think the Warriors aren't the worst offense in the league. They're also not the best offense in the league. They're probably going to be around league average. If they can be somewhere between 10 and 15, that's probably a good result. But things are going to obviously ebb and flow through a long 82-game season. Anyway, thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK. 252 on X/Twitter. We're on TikTok and Instagram, Golden State with Mates. I'll be back for another post-game live after the game against the Kings tomorrow. Let's hope for the Warriors' 3rd straight win. And thanks again to everyone that's tuned in, whether you've commented live now or you've tuned in on the replay, or whether you're listening via the podcast feed. Hopefully you can join me after the Kings game tomorrow, and let's hope for another Warrior victory.